This video will continue with Chapter 11, looking at Section 2 on quadratic equations. And we're going to look more about how to solve quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. And so the quadratic formula is a way to be able to solve quadratic equations, which, if you remember, were introduced in the last video as an equation with an exponent no greater than to the second power, and it may have a coefficient with an x and a constant, or it may not. Whatever quadratic form equation that you're given, if you'd like to be able to solve it, the solution can be found using the quadratic formula, which is shown here in a couple different forms. And so notice that one of the forms has a positive right here before the square root sign. One has a negative, and so together it's written as negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And the a, b, and c are listed right here, so you're basically substituting in here for the a and here for the b and so on. So let's go ahead and see a little bit more about this. So you can see here that the quadratic formula is broken down into put in standard form, and it's very important that you put it into standard form before you do this. I recommend rewriting it every single time to put it into standard form before you start working with it, rather than trying to grab an a over here and a b from over here. So once it's in standard form like this, with the x squared x constant and equal, and have it where it's equal to 0, the a is, in this case, the number 2, and it stands for the coefficient that's in front of the x squared. The b is the coefficient in front of the x, and negative 3 is c. And so you just substitute these values in here. Make sure when you are doing it, be very careful that you watch your signs. It's the over the years, the thing that I see the most error from is where students don't have the correct signs, don't use the correct integers, and that messes them up. But it's also easily fixed, and you can go back and look at your math. All right, let's go ahead and look at how to solve one of these problems. So looking at how to solve the quadratic equation 2x squared plus 5x minus 3 equals 0. And so put the quadratic formula right over here for you, so it's easy. And I'm going to do this also. I'm going to go ahead and label just for this one A, B, and C, so that as we're pulling these down, you can hopefully try to be able to do this. So also, as usual, if you'd like to go ahead and pause the video and try this on your own, if you would just want to substitute in the coefficient values into the quadratic formula and then solve it. Okay, let's go ahead then, and we are going to work on solving this together. And so we're going to say x squared equals negative b, in this case is negative 5, plus or minus the square root of b, which is 5, squared, minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is negative 3, all over 2 times 2. Okay, and so what we end up with here is we're just now going to go ahead and continue working this. Negative 5 plus or minus the square root of, that will be 25. And then let's see, there we go. 4 times 2 is 8, times negative 3 is negative 24. So with this negative and a negative, that will make that a positive 24. And so now and that's over 2 times 2, which is 4. And so go ahead and continue this down. Negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 49 over 4. And keep working this problem. And so negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 49, which, you know what, let's just go ahead and solve that. Square root of 49, you need to put it in your calculators, or you know that 7 times 7 is 49, all over 4. Negative 5. So now let's go ahead and break this out. we're going to go -5 plus 7, -5 plus 7 over 4, and we're going to go -5 minus 7 over 4. Because this is where that whole plus or minus, make sure that you get, you're using both of those. So -5 plus 7 is 2 over 4, or 1/2, and -5 and -7 is -12 over 4, or -3. So your two answers for x equals 1/2 and x equals -3. So working to solve the next quadratic equation, one of the things that you want to notice first is that it is not in the standard form. So you might look at that initially and just want to jump right in, but notice that it has not been equal to 0. So let's go ahead and get that done. And we will say that this problem looks more like 3x squared minus 7x minus 5 equals 0. And that's because we had to subtract 5 over here, subtract 5 over here. What you do to one side of the equal, you have to do the other side of the equal sign. So now we have it in the standard form, and we'll go ahead and work with this. If you want to, go ahead and pause your video and see if you can solve this using the quadratic formula on your own. Okay, so we're back. I'm going to go ahead and work with the quadratic formula this time without putting the little a, b, or c above the equation, and we're just going to go ahead and solve this out just like you probably would at home. So x equals -b, and so now this is negative and it's -7. So one of the things is that I like to do is go ahead and I like to, oh, sorry, can't do two things at one time. I like to put the negative on here because I know it's a -b, but then also show that -b is -7. And I'll make that a positive later on. But that way when I go back looking to try to figure it out, I can try to see where an error might be. So -b plus or minus the square root of b, which is -7. And I really apologize, my pen is just going crazy. -7 squared minus 4 times 3 times c. So now you see why it was important that we got that constant in the right place, because that would have been a 5 if you would have tried to do it the other way. So if you did try to solve it, you're like, oh, why did I get +5 right there? You need to get it over. And so now 2 times a, which is 3. Okay. I go ahead and just get rid of this so I have to stop fighting with it. Okay, so now let's go ahead then, and we're going to rewrite this problem with 7, +7, because a negative and a negative, plus or minus the square root of -7 squared is 49, minus 4 times -4 times 3 is -12, times -5 is +60. +60 over 6. Okay. And so now we'll go 7 plus or minus the square root of 49 and 60 is 109 over 6. It's probably not going to be a very pretty number, but that's okay. We can deal with it. So let's go ahead then, and we have +7. Oh, sorry. Don't mind my my email from. Okay, plus or minus the square root of 109, which 109 square root. There it is. Okay. Sorry, I was having a difficult time getting my calculator, and now I've got more than I wanted. 109 square root is 10.44. Now remember, if that would have been a negative under there, I would have just said no solution because I can't take a negative of a square root, right? Or of a no, I can't take the square root of a negative number. Over 6. My page. And so now we'll have two different problems. We'll have 7 plus 10.44 over 6. We'll have 7 minus 10.44 over 6. And so we got 17.44 over 6 and negative 3.44 over 6. (17.44) divided by 6 equals 2.91, and negative 3.44 divided by 6 equals negative 0.57. And so x equals 2.91 as well as negative 5.7. And that is how you do the quadratic equation. Make sure to put it in standard form first and then just solve it out.